welcome to my channel where we talk about cool cars, cool technology, and alternative fuels. Welcome back to the channel. Just another update video, this time on the solar panel system. The last video was pretty big, had a lot of updates and stuff. I think a different inverter and batteries, and the control system here was all new. Good news is it's been working pretty good, so hadn't had to do a whole lot to it. I have updated the software on the control panel there. As you can see, I think different from last time is that we now have a message that lets us know whether we're in solar power or grid power, and also a current power reading, that just is in watts, of power being consumed from the solar panel system. So just some basic things there. In that update, I also changed the way it switches from grid to solar power. So if you remember from the last video, that switch happens whenever electricity is cheaper, which is at night. The system will switch to grid power and use the cheap electricity to recharge whatever the solar panels were not able to charge, recharge the batteries, that is, to fully charge if the solar panels weren't able to do that during the day. And also powers the house at the same time with the grid power when it's cheap. Just changed the kind of tuning of the system a little bit so that it changes quicker, so there's not really as big of a power dropout. Also now with that new power meter gauge, the system is actively monitoring all the power consumed from the solar panel system, and that's not just to display it on the screen, although it's helpful to kind of know so you can gauge your energy use and stuff like that. It's also being used in the brain box back here to help load shed whenever there's not a lot of power left in the batteries and the demand for power is high. So the system looks for those two conditions to be met, and if so, it uses the controls over here. Got the panels pulled off for you again. The relays, rather, I guess contactors, honestly, up here that can control big loads such as the water heater, the well pump, and some sump pumps. So a few loads there, and then not in that box, but a load that can also be controlled is the main central heating and the central air conditioning system. So it uses more inputs just to be able to make sure that we don't go into an emergency state with the inverter, it doesn't shut off and anything like that. Especially in low power conditions, we're having a few issues with that, so a little bit of tuning, and it seems to be working pretty good. That update is relatively new, but no problems thus far. It does exactly what it's supposed to. Low power, high demand, start shutting things off. It shuts off, first it shuts off everything it possibly can without turning the lights off, and then turns them on one by one and checks to see what exactly is running, how much power is it using, and then figures out through a list of, like, this is more important than this, than this, than this, figures out what can be turned on, what can be shut off, for how long can it be shut off, until somebody would notice, like, hey, air conditioner's not running, or hey, well pump's not running. So how can it store energy in different places that are not electrical power, like the temperature in the house, the temperature in the water heater, the pressure in the well? How can it store energy to deal with a high load situation, especially when there's not a lot of power available? New batteries. So the original system, I think, it just took all the batteries out of the electric pickup truck that I had and just moved them right over here. I think that was 24 batteries. Yeah, that would have been right, from the electric truck. And now I've knocked that down to only 18 batteries. 24 was a bit big, and those batteries were used already. Of course, coming out of the electric truck, used quite heavily, cycled every day. The motor, I think, pulled like 500 amps on the pack, so a lot of amperage, a lot of cycling. Those were already about half used up when they came here, and so just went ahead. A lot of them started failing. Went ahead and replaced the pack. Pack's good for about 5 to 7 years in this kind of use. Of course, the other ones were a bit newer, but they got some severe use before they came here. So new batteries, smaller battery pack. It's almost perfectly sized, and by that I mean it will, with the solar panels, it can store enough energy to run the house, run the air conditioner and everything, right up until the power starts getting cheaper and it's time to switch over. So perfectly sized, instead of having, you know, too many batteries that just are. It's nice to have extra capacity, but a little bit expensive when the time comes to replace them. And of course, this is about saving money. This is about you know, how low can we get energy cost overall, including parts, equipment, fuel in the generator, and electricity that you purchase. Speaking of the generator, it is the same currently, but I'll tag a little clip in on here of a prototype generator that I'm. So this is the generator prototype I was talking about. You might recognize this from some other videos. This was a regular generator that I built, a very oversized engine, transmission, gearbox, and then back there in the back was a generator head. Generator head's gone, it's been scrapped. This thing's been sitting out, got the engine running, and I was like, this might make actually a pretty good generator because I can run it at low RPM. It's a massive small block Chevy 350 engine, so it makes plenty of horsepower at very low throttle, very low RPM, and while it's not the most efficient thing in the world, running it that way, it'll be relatively quiet compared to a single-cylinder engine at full throttle, even though that might technically be more efficient. So this is obviously a work in progress, radiators out and everything like that, but I'm working on putting some brackets around the front of the engine here, and we got some pulleys with grooves for multiple belts, and those are going to drive 4 AC Delco standard 10 SI style alternators, and those will be wired in a configuration such that they'll be able to charge the batteries just like the current generator on the solar panel system. So this is basically, for all intents and purposes, this is a very quiet inverter generator. Right. Other than that, everything else is pretty much the same from last time. Thank you so much for watching. Hope you enjoyed the little update. Have a good one.